Liam Carter had spent 6 years fixing what others broke. Circuit boards, wiring systems, elevator panels, anything mechanical that failed in Sterling Tower eventually crossed his workbench. He was good at his job, quiet about his life, and invisible to everyone above the 30th floor. That suited him fine. Invisibility meant stability, and stability meant he could pick up his daughter Mia from school on time, heat up dinner, and read her the same bedtime story she'd loved since she was 4. He never asked for more than that. So when his supervisor handed him a new assignment that morning, technical support for the executive wing on the 51st floor, Liam felt a flutter of cautious hope. It was a small opportunity, but it meant extra hours. Extra hours meant extra money. And extra money meant he could finally fix the leak in Mia's bedroom ceiling before winter came. He followed the work order to room 51A, assuming it was an equipment closet or server room. The hallway was empty, polished to a reflective shine that made his work boots feel out of place. He checked the number twice. Knocked once, no answer. He turned the handle. The door swung open, and Liam Carter's entire world tilted on its axis. Ariana Sterling stood in the center of the room, halfway between a formal dress and a white silk blouse. Her hair fell loose around her shoulders. Her feet were bare against the marble floor. She turned. Their eyes met. No scream, no fury. Just a single, crystallized moment of absolute shock, so complete that even the air seemed to hold its breath. The next 3 seconds stretched into an eternity. Liam's hand was still on the door handle. His brain screamed at him to move, to apologize, to do something, but his body had disconnected from rational thought. He was frozen in the doorway, like a man who had accidentally stepped into another dimension and couldn't find his way back. Ariana's fingers moved instinctively, pulling the blouse closed across her chest. Her voice came out thin, barely above a whisper. "Don't come closer." It wasn't anger. It was something older, something that had lived inside her for years. Liam finally found his legs. He stumbled backward, words tumbling out in a rush. "I'm sorry. The work order. I thought this was... I didn't know." But before he could finish, the sharp wail of an alarm cut through the air. The VIP room's unauthorized entry protocol had triggered automatically, and within seconds, the heavy footsteps of security personnel thundered down the corridor. 2 guards appeared behind Liam, their faces hard with professional suspicion. One of them grabbed his arm and shoved him against the wall with practiced efficiency. "Don't move." "I didn't do anything," Liam managed, his cheek pressed against the cold surface. "I was assigned here. Check the system. Check my work order." "Save it," the second guard said. "Miss Sterling, do you want us to detain him? We can have him removed from the building permanently within the hour." Ariana had finished buttoning her blouse. Her composure was returning in layers, like armor being reassembled piece by piece. She opened her mouth to respond, then stopped. Her gaze had dropped to the carpet near her wardrobe cabinet. There was a scratch there, a fresh one. A thin line carved into the expensive fibers, running parallel to the cabinet's base. It hadn't been there yesterday. She was certain of it, and it couldn't have been made by a man who had stood frozen in the doorway for less than 5 seconds. Ariana looked at Liam again. Really looked. His face was pale with genuine terror, not the calculated fear of someone caught in a scheme, but the raw panic of a man who had stumbled into a nightmare he didn't understand. "Miss Sterling," the guard prompted, "should we proceed with suspension?" The silence stretched. Ariana's eyes remained fixed on Liam's face, searching for something. Not guilt. She had seen plenty of guilty men in her years running this company. They had a particular quality, a slipperiness around the edges of their expressions. Liam Carter had none of that. What she saw instead was confusion, embarrassment, and underneath it all, a desperate worry that had nothing to do with her and everything to do with something else entirely, someone else. "No." she heard herself say. The word surprised even her. Take him to the main security office. I want to review the full access logs before any decisions are made. The guards exchanged glances but didn't argue. They released Liam's arm and escorted him down the hallway, his work boots squeaking against the polished floor. Ariana watched them go. Then she looked down at the scratch on her carpet again. Someone had been in this room before Liam arrived. 15 minutes later, Ariana stood in the security control center, her arms crossed over her chest as 3 technicians pulled up footage and system logs on multiple screens. There, she said, pointing at a timestamp, 38 seconds before the maintenance worker reached my floor. What happened to the hallway camera? The head technician's face had gone slightly gray. It appears there was a signal interruption, Miss Sterling. The feed cut out for just under a minute. A coincidence? We're looking into it. Pull up the door access records for 51A. More typing. More uncomfortable silence. Finally, the technician turned his screen toward her. The door was opened from the inside, he said quietly, not from an external keycard. Someone was already in the room and triggered the release mechanism before the maintenance worker arrived. Ariana felt the blood drain from her face. That's impossible. I was the only one. But she hadn't been, not really. She had stepped out for 12 minutes to take a call in the adjacent conference room. The door should have locked automatically behind her. There's more, another technician said, his voice reluctant. We found an unauthorized login attempt in the access control system. Someone used a deactivated employee account to modify room permissions about an hour before the incident. Someone had deliberately created a vulnerability. They had wanted her room to be accessible at exactly the wrong moment. They had wanted her exposed. Literally or figuratively, she couldn't yet tell. But why and who? She thought of the scratch on her carpet, of the way Liam Carter had frozen in that doorway, his eyes wide with a shock that couldn't be faked. He wasn't the threat. He was a witness to something else entirely. Bring the maintenance worker back, Ariana said, her voice steady. He's not being suspended. From now on, he reports directly to me until I've completed my own investigation of this incident. Ariana returned to her office alone. The evening light had begun to fade, casting long shadows across her desk. She sat in her chair without turning on the lamp, letting the darkness settle around her like an old, familiar coat. The security footage was still playing on her private monitor, a loop of the 38 seconds before Liam Carter's arrival. Nothing but static. A perfect gap in the record, precisely when someone had needed it most. She rewound it again, watched the static hiss and flicker. Then she noticed something she had missed before. The timestamp jumped. Not a glitch, not a transmission error, a clean surgical cut, exactly at the moment she would have begun changing out of her conference dress. Ariana's hand moved unconsciously to her shoulder, fingers pressing against the fabric of her blouse. Beneath it, hidden from view, was a bruise the color of thunderclouds. It had been there for 3 weeks, fading slowly from purple to green to yellow, a reminder of a night she had tried very hard to forget. The memory came anyway. A charity gala in Manhattan, too much champagne, a man she had thought she could trust, a fellow CEO, someone she had known for years, following her into a private changing room after the event. The way his hand had closed around her arm when she had tried to leave. The things he had said in a voice that was perfectly calm, perfectly reasonable, as if explaining why she owed him something she had never promised. She had gotten away that night, barely, but the bruise had stayed, and so had the fear that crept into her chest every time she was alone in a room with a closed door. 3 years ago, a different man in a different changing room had done worse. That one hadn't let her leave so easily. That one had left marks that didn't fade for months, and scars that would never fade at all.
Ariana touched the bruise again, then forced her hand back to the keyboard.
The footage gap wasn't random. Someone knew her schedule. Someone knew she changed clothes in that room every Tuesday and Thursday before her evening meetings. Someone had been watching her closely enough to know exactly when she would be vulnerable. And they had sent an unsuspecting maintenance worker to witness it. She pulled up Liam Carter's employee file. 6 years with the company. Perfect attendance record. Single father. That explained the flicker of desperate worry she had seen in his eyes. A daughter named Mia, age 7. No complaints, no incidents, no ambition beyond doing his job well and going home. He wasn't a threat. But whoever had set this up wanted her to believe he was. They wanted her rattled, defensive, distracted by an innocent man while the real danger stayed hidden. Ariana closed the file and stared at the frozen static on her screen. She wouldn't give them what they wanted. The next morning, Ariana's assistant delivered a message to the technical support department at 10 o'clock sharp. Liam spent the 90 minutes before his summons convinced he was about to be fired. He sat at his workbench, pretending to repair a circuit board, while his mind ran through every worst-case scenario. He had already called his mother to ask if she could pick up Mia from school, just in case he didn't have a job by 3 o'clock. When the elevator doors opened on the 51st floor, his palms were slick with sweat. The same polished hallway, the same too-quiet atmosphere. But this time, a young woman in a crisp gray suit was waiting to escort him, not to room 51A, but to the corner office at the end of the corridor. The door was already open. Ariana Sterling sat behind a desk that probably cost more than Liam's annual salary. She was dressed in black today, her hair pulled back in a severe knot. She looked nothing like the vulnerable woman he had glimpsed yesterday. She looked like exactly what she was, a billionaire who could end his career with a single phone call. "Sit down, Mr. Carter." Liam sat. His hands found the armrests and gripped them like lifelines. For a long moment, Ariana just looked at him. Her expression was unreadable. Not angry, not cold, just intensely focused, as if she was trying to see through his skin to whatever truth lay beneath. "I'm going to ask you some questions," she said finally. "I need you to answer them honestly. Can you do that?" Liam nodded. "Yes, ma'am." "Don't call me ma'am. It makes me feel like my grandmother." The corner of her mouth twitched. Not quite a smile, but something close. "Tell me exactly what happened yesterday, from the beginning." So he did. The work order, the assumption about the equipment room, the door that opened too easily, the moment he realized his mistake, and the paralyzing horror that followed. Ariana listened without interrupting. When he finished, she leaned back in her chair and studied him for another long moment. "You didn't know that room was mine?" It wasn't a question, but Liam answered anyway. "No, I swear on my daughter's life I didn't know. The work order just said 51A, technical support. I thought, I believe you." Liam blinked. Of all the things he had expected her to say, that wasn't one of them. "You do?" "I've spent 15 years reading people in boardrooms," Ariana said. "Liars have a particular quality, a rehearsed smoothness. You don't have it." She paused. "Also, the door was opened from the inside before you got there. Someone wanted you to walk in at that exact moment." Hit Liam like a physical blow. "Someone set me up?" "Someone set us both up. I don't know why yet, and I don't know who, but I intend to find out." Ariana's eyes never left his face. "In the meantime, I need someone I can trust on this floor. Someone who isn't part of whatever game is being played. Do you understand what I'm saying? You want me to stay? After what happened?" "What happened wasn't your fault, Mr. Carter. And frankly, your reaction told me more about your character than 100 background checks ever could. Ariana stood and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. A different kind of man would have tried to use what he saw, would have made excuses or offers or threats. You just stood there looking like you wanted the floor to swallow you whole. Liam felt heat rise to his cheeks. I really did want that. This time, Ariana actually smiled. It was small and brief, but it transformed her face, made her look younger, softer, almost human. I know, she said. That's why you're still employed. The meeting ended 15 minutes later. Liam walked back to the elevator in a daze, his mind spinning with everything she had told him. Someone had sabotaged the security system. Someone had used him as a pawn. Someone was watching Ariana Sterling closely enough to know her private schedule. He was so lost in thought that he almost didn't notice the small figure sitting on a bench near the elevator bank. Mia looked up at him with her mother's green eyes, the eyes that still made his chest ache 3 years after Sarah's death. "Daddy, Grandma brought me to see the big building." Liam's mother appeared around the corner, looking apologetic. She insisted, "I'm sorry, honey. I know you said..." But Liam was already kneeling down, pulling Mia into a hug that lasted a beat too long. "It's okay, Mom. It's fine." Over his daughter's shoulder, he saw Ariana Sterling standing in the doorway of her office. She hadn't retreated back inside. She was watching them, watching Mia, with an expression he couldn't quite read. Something in her eyes had softened. Something that had been locked away behind steel walls was peeking through the cracks. Then she turned and disappeared back into her office, and the moment was gone. 2 days later, Ariana asked Liam to come back to her office. Not for an interrogation this time, for something else entirely. She was standing by the window when he arrived, her back to the door. She didn't turn around when she spoke. "I owe you an explanation." Liam stayed near the entrance, uncertain. "Miss Sterling, you don't owe me anything." "Yes, I do." She turned then, and he saw something in her face he hadn't expected. Vulnerability. It looked foreign on her features, like a language she had forgotten how to speak. "When you opened that door, my reaction, it wasn't about you. I need you to understand that." Liam said nothing. He had a feeling she needed to say this more than he needed to hear it. 3 years ago, Ariana continued, her voice careful and controlled, I was at an industry conference. There was a shared changing room for speakers. I was getting ready for my keynote when a man, someone I had worked with, someone I had trusted, decided he was entitled to something I never offered. She paused, and Liam watched her hands curl into fists at her sides. He didn't succeed. Not completely. But he succeeded enough. Her jaw tightened. Ever since then, I've had what the therapists call hypervigilance. Closed doors, unexpected sounds, someone appearing where I don't expect them, my body reacts before my brain catches up. Fight or flight, except I usually freeze. "Like you did when I walked in," Liam said quietly. "Exactly like that." Ariana met his eyes. "So when I stood there unable to move, unable to speak, it wasn't because I thought you were a threat. It was because my nervous system didn't give me a choice. And I'm sorry if my reaction made you feel like you had done something monstrous." Liam shook his head. "I walked into a room where I didn't belong. Your reaction was completely..." "It wasn't about you," she repeated. "That's what I need you to understand. You just happened to be there when 3 years of buried trauma decided to resurface." She moved to her desk to retrieve some files, and as she bent forward, her blouse shifted. For just a moment, Liam caught a glimpse of her collarbone and the edge of a bruise that definitely wasn't 3 years old. Ariana noticed his gaze and straightened quickly, her hand moving to adjust her collar. Neither of them acknowledged what he had seen. But something shifted in the air between them, an unspoken recognition that her past wasn't as past as she wanted it to be. "Thank you for telling me," Liam said finally. "And for the record, if I ever find out who did that to you, they'll wish I hadn't." It was an absurd thing to say. He was a maintenance worker threatening violence against someone who had hurt a billionaire. But Ariana's eyes widened slightly, and for just a moment, she looked at him like he had said exactly the right thing. "Careful, Mr. Carter," she said, a hint of warmth creeping into her voice. "Statements like that might make me think you actually care." "I do," Liam said simply. "I'm not sure why yet, but I do." Ariana had no response to that. She just stood there, files forgotten in her hands, looking at him like he was a puzzle she couldn't quite solve. A week later, Ariana made the arrangement official. She called Liam into her office and offered him a temporary transfer. Instead of general building maintenance, he would serve as dedicated technical support for the VIP floor. Same pay, better hours, and a chance to monitor the security systems that someone had clearly compromised. "I need someone watching the infrastructure," she explained. "Someone who isn't connected to whoever orchestrated that incident. You're the only person in this building I'm certain wasn't involved." Liam considered the offer. He needed the job. That hadn't changed. And there was something else now, something harder to name. A sense that Ariana Sterling was more alone than anyone in her position had a right to be, and that maybe, in some small way, he could help. "I'll do it," he said, "but I have a condition." Ariana raised an eyebrow. "You're negotiating with me? That takes nerve." "My daughter," Liam said, "Mia. Sometimes my mom can't pick her up from school, and I don't have anyone else. If this job means longer hours, I need flexibility. I need to be able to leave if she needs me." He expected resistance. Rich people, in his experience, didn't understand that some things mattered more than work. But Ariana just nodded. "Done. Bring her here if you have to. I'll make sure security knows she's welcome." It wasn't what Liam had expected. Nothing about Ariana Sterling was what he had expected. The first few weeks were awkward. Their interactions were stiff, professional, carefully bounded by the invisible lines between employer and employee. Ariana called him Mr. Carter. Liam called her Miss Sterling. They discussed security logs and access codes and never mentioned that night in her office when she had told him about the conference, about the man, about the 3 years of nightmares that followed. But gradually, almost imperceptibly, the walls began to soften. It started with small things. Ariana asking about his day. Liam offering to fix a flickering light in her office without being asked. A shared moment of eye contact that lasted half a second longer than necessary. And then there was Mia. The first time Liam had to bring her to work, he apologized profusely. His mother had a doctor's appointment, the babysitter had canceled, and he had no choice. He expected Ariana to be annoyed, or at least coldly tolerant. Instead, she knelt down to Mia's eye level and said, "I hear you like to draw. Is that true?" Mia nodded shyly, clutching her sketchbook. "There's a conference room down the hall with a whiteboard that covers an entire wall," Ariana said. "Would you like to draw on it while your dad works?" Mia's eyes went wide. "A whole wall?" "The whole thing. And when you're done, you can show me what you made." Later that afternoon, when Liam collected Mia from the conference room, he found Ariana standing at the whiteboard, studying the elaborate castle his daughter had drawn. Mia was explaining each tower, each flag, each tiny window. "This one is for the princess," she said, pointing. "And this one is for the brave knight. And this one is for the princess's best friend, because everyone needs a best friend." Ariana's expression was unguarded in a way Liam had never seen, soft, almost wistful. "It's beautiful," she said quietly. "You're a real artist, Mia." Mia beamed. "Thank you. Can I draw you sometime? You have pretty hair. Ariana laughed, actually laughed, a sound that startled Liam in its warmth. Maybe someday, she said. I'd like that.
On the drive home, Mia asked, "Daddy, is that lady lonely?" Liam gripped the steering wheel. "What makes you say that, sweetheart?"
She looked at my castle the way you look at pictures of Mommy. Like she's remembering something that makes her happy and sad at the same time.
Liam didn't have an answer for that, but he thought about it for a long time after Mia fell asleep.
The storm came without warning. One moment, the evening sky was merely overcast. The next, sheets of rain were hammering against Sterling Tower's windows with enough force to rattle the glass. Lightning split the darkness every few seconds, and the thunder that followed shook the building to its foundations. Liam was running a diagnostic on the backup generators when the power failed. The lights flickered once, twice, then died entirely. Emergency strips along the baseboards glowed red, casting the hallway in an eerie crimson light. Then, even those went dark. The silence that followed was absolute. No hum of ventilation, no distant elevator chimes, just the rain and the thunder and the blackness. Liam pulled out his phone and switched on the flashlight. The generator room was 2 floors down, but something made him turn toward the executive wing instead. An instinct, a whisper of worry he couldn't explain. He found Oriana in conference room B. The door's electronic lock had engaged when the power failed, trapping her inside. Liam could hear her through the heavy wood, not screaming, not calling for help, just breathing. Fast, shallow breaths that spoke of barely contained terror. "Miss Sterling, it's Liam. Can you hear me?" No response, just that rapid breathing. "I'm going to get you out. Give me 1 minute." He found the manual override panel beside the doorframe and pried it open. Emergency release. He pulled the lever, heard the lock disengage, and pushed the door open. The flashlight beam found her in the corner. Ariana Sterling, billionaire, CEO, woman who commanded boardrooms with a glance, was pressed against the wall with her knees drawn to her chest, her eyes squeezed shut, her whole body trembling. Liam understood immediately. The darkness, the trapped space, the loss of control. Every trigger her trauma had installed was firing at once. He approached slowly, the way you would approach a wounded animal. "Ariana, it's me. You're safe. No one's gonna hurt you." Her eyes opened, but they weren't seeing him. They were seeing something else entirely, some other room, some other darkness, some other man who hadn't meant her well. "I can't." Her voice was a thread. "I can't." Liam knelt in front of her. Slowly, giving her time to pull away, he placed his hands on her shoulders. The contact seemed to anchor her, draw her back from wherever her mind had gone. "Look at me," he said quietly. "Just look at me. You're in Sterling Tower, you're on the 51st floor. The power's out, but that's all. Just a blackout, nothing else." Ariana's eyes focused on his face. Her breathing began to slow. "That's it. Just breathe. In and out. I've got you." They stayed like that for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. The rain continued to pound against the windows. Thunder rolled across the sky. But inside that dark room, there was only the circle of flashlight glow and 2 people learning to trust each other in the spaces between heartbeats. When Ariana finally spoke, her voice was steadier. "I'm sorry. I haven't had an episode like that in months. I thought I was past this." "You don't have to apologize." Liam's hands were still on her shoulders. He hadn't noticed until now that he was still holding her. He also hadn't noticed that she hadn't asked him to let go. Trauma doesn't follow a schedule. It shows up when it wants. "I'm not afraid of you," she said finally. "I just realized that.
You're the first man in years I've been alone with in the dark, and I'm not afraid." The next day, Ariana did something she had never done before. She left the executive floor, took the elevator down to the technical support department, and walked through a maze of workbenches until she found Liam Carter replacing a fuse box.
He looked up, startled. "Miss Sterling, is something wrong with the security system?"
"Ariana," she said, "after last night, I think we're past formalities." Liam set down his tools. Around them, other workers had stopped what they were doing to stare. A visit from the CEO to the basement was roughly equivalent to a visit from royalty. "I came to apologize," Ariana said, "and to thank you."
"For what? Pulling a lever and holding a flashlight?"
"For not treating me like I was broken." She took a step closer, lowering her voice. "Everyone who knows about my issue, they look at me differently after. Like I'm fragile. Like they need to be careful around me. You didn't do that. You just helped. No judgment, no pity, just help." Liam shrugged. Seemed like the obvious response. "It wasn't, trust me." Ariana hesitated, then added, "I wasn't afraid of you. When you opened that door the first day, and last night in the conference room, I keep thinking about that. I wasn't afraid of you." Before Liam could respond, a small voice interrupted them. "Daddy, look! I drew the castle again, but this time it has a dragon!" Mia came running around the corner, her grandmother trailing behind with an apologetic expression. The little girl skidded to a stop when she saw Ariana, her face breaking into a delighted grin.
"The pretty hair lady."
"Mia," Liam started, "we talked about not running in—" But Mia had already stumbled over a cable lying across the floor. She went down hard, her sketchbook flying from her hands. Ariana moved without thinking. She caught the girl before she hit the ground, sweeping her up in one smooth motion and settling her against her hip like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Careful, little artist," she said softly. "Castles take time, and so do the people who build them." Mia's lip was trembling, more from shock than pain, but she didn't cry. Instead, she wrapped her arms around Ariana's neck and held on tight. Liam watched them, his daughter clinging to a woman who had built walls around herself for years, and that woman holding his daughter like she was something precious. The distance between them, already shortened, collapsed entirely in that moment. Whatever lines had existed were gone now, erased by a small girl with her mother's smile and an instinct for finding the softness in people who had forgotten it existed. Ariana looked at Liam over Mia's head. Something passed between them that neither could name, but they both felt it. A shift, a beginning, a door opening where none had existed before. The photograph arrived at the board meeting 3 weeks later. Someone had slipped it into the presentation folder that was distributed to every member before the session began. The image was grainy, clearly taken with a phone camera in low light, but there was no mistaking what it showed. Liam Carter with his arms around Ariana Sterling, their bodies close in the darkness, her face pressed against his shoulder. It was from the blackout night. Someone had been watching. Someone had been waiting. The board's vice chairman, a silver-haired man named Harrison Wells, held up the photograph with an expression of theatrical concern. "I think we need to discuss this before we proceed with the quarterly report." Ariana felt the blood drain from her face. Around the table, board members were picking up their own copies of the image, studying it with expressions ranging from shock to barely concealed satisfaction. "This appears to show our CEO in a compromising position with a maintenance worker," Wells continued. "I'm sure there's an explanation, but given recent concerns about company image..." "Where did you get this?" "It was sent anonymously to several board members this morning. We felt it was important to address it directly." Wells's tone was reasonable, almost sympathetic, but his eyes told a different story. Perhaps you'd like to explain the context. Ariana looked at the photograph again. The angle was perfect, calculated to make an innocent moment look like something sordid. You couldn't see her face, couldn't see that she had been in the grip of a panic attack moments before. You could only see Liam holding her, and her leaning into him, and the darkness surrounding them both. She had two choices. She could deflect, minimize, spin some story about professional boundaries and unfortunate optics, sacrifice Liam to protect herself, and hope the board moved on to other matters. Or she could tell the truth, all of it, the trauma she had hidden for years, the vulnerability she had never let anyone see. The reason a man's arms around her in the dark was not a scandal, but a lifeline. Around the table, the board waited. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked hungry. Ariana thought of Liam, of the way he had knelt in front of her during the blackout, his voice steady, his hands firm and gentle on her shoulders. Of the way he had treated her not like a broken thing, but like a person who was struggling and deserved help. He hadn't asked for any of this. He had just been doing his job, being a decent human being. And now someone wanted to use that decency as a weapon against them both. "I'll explain," Ariana said quietly, "but not to protect myself, to protect someone who doesn't deserve to be dragged into whatever game is being played here." She took a breath. Then she began to tell them about the conference 3 years ago, about the man she had trusted, about what he had done and what it had cost her. She told them about the hypervigilance, the therapy, the years of rebuilding herself piece by piece. She told them about the blackout, about being trapped in the dark with all her old fears closing in, about the maintenance worker who had found her and talked her back from the edge. She didn't cry. She didn't break. She just told the truth, in a voice as steady as steel. When she finished, the room was silent. Several board members had the decency to look ashamed. "The man in this photograph saved me from a panic attack," Ariana concluded. "He did nothing inappropriate. He showed compassion to someone in crisis. And if this board decides to punish him for that, you'll have my resignation within the hour." No one spoke. Harrison Wells had gone slightly pale. "Furthermore," Ariana continued, her voice hardening, "I want to know who took this photograph and who distributed it, because whoever did so has been monitoring my movements without authorization, and that's a security breach I intend to prosecute to the fullest extent of the law." She stood. As she did, her sleeve caught on the edge of the table, pulling her blouse slightly aside. For just a moment, the edge of a bruise was visible against her collarbone, faded but still present, a shadow of old wounds that hadn't fully healed. The board members saw it. Their faces changed. "This meeting is adjourned," Ariana said, "and when we reconvene, I expect a formal apology to be issued to Mr. Carter for the damage this photograph has caused to his reputation. Additionally, I'm recommending him for promotion to Head of Security Technology for the Executive Wing. Any objections?" "Good." She walked out without looking back. Later that evening, Liam found her standing at her office window, watching the city lights. "I heard what happened in there. The whole building's talking about it." "I imagine they are." "You didn't have to do that, defend me like that. Tell them about—" He stopped. "You shouldn't have had to tell them any of it." "Yes, I did, because they were going to crucify you for being kind to me, and I refused to let that happen." "The promotion too? Head of Security Technology? You deserve it. You've been doing the job anyway. Now you'll get paid for it." Liam shook his head slowly. "I don't know what to say." "Then don't say anything," Ariana's voice softened. "Just tell me I didn't make a mistake. Tell me trusting you wasn't—" It wasn't. Liam crossed the room in 3 steps. He stopped just short of touching her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. It wasn't a mistake. You trusted the right person. For a long moment, they just stood there. The city glowed beyond the window. The silence between them was full of all the things they hadn't said.
"I should go," Liam said finally. "Mia's waiting."
He was almost to the door when he turned back. "That night, the blackout, you said you weren't afraid of me." He met her eyes. "I wasn't afraid either. Of being that close to you. Of wanting to protect you. I just thought you should know." He left before she could respond, but Ariana stood there for a long time after, his words echoing in the empty office. 3 months later, Ariana found herself standing in a hallway she had avoided since the day everything started. Room 51A. The door was closed. The corridor was empty. She hadn't planned to come here, but somehow her feet had carried her to this spot, to this door, to this memory. The door opened behind her. Liam stepped out of the adjacent maintenance room, a tablet in his hands. He stopped when he saw her. "Ariana? Is everything okay?" "I was just thinking," she said, "about that first day, when you opened this door and everything changed." Liam moved to stand beside her, close but not touching, respecting the boundaries she had maintained even as they had grown increasingly blurred. "What were you thinking?" "About what shocked me." She turned to face him. "It wasn't that you saw me undressed. That was startling, but that's not what made me freeze." "Then what was it?" "Your eyes." Ariana's voice was barely above a whisper. "The way you looked at me. There was no judgment, no hunger, no calculation about how you could use what you had seen. Just pure shock, and then immediate concern. Not for yourself, for me." She took a breath. "In that moment, I realized something. You saw me vulnerable, exposed, completely defenseless, and your only instinct was to make sure I was okay. Not to take advantage, not to demand something, just to help." Liam was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I saw a woman who was carrying more weight than anyone should have to carry alone. Someone who had been hurt and was still fighting. Someone I wanted to protect. Even though I barely knew you. Even though you could have had me fired with a single word." Ariana felt tears prickling at her eyes. She blinked them back. "No one's ever looked at me like that," she said. "Like I was both broken and whole at the same time. Like the broken parts didn't make me less, they just made me who I am. Because that's who you are. The scars don't define you. They're just part of the story, and the story isn't over yet." Footsteps echoed down the hallway. Mia appeared around the corner, her sketchbook under her arm. "Daddy, Grandma said I could stay for dinner if you say yes. Can I, please?" "That's up to Miss Sterling, sweetheart. It's her building." Mia turned to Ariana with pleading eyes. "Can I stay? Please. I want to show you the new castle I drew. It has a unicorn now, and a secret garden." Ariana looked at this little girl, with her father's eyes and her mother's smile, and a heart big enough to love a stranger who was still learning to let people in. "Better than that," she heard herself say. "Why don't you and your dad come have dinner with me? I know a place with very good pasta." Mia's face lit up. "Can Daddy come too?" "That's the idea." Ariana looked at Liam. "If that's okay with you." Liam's smile started slow and ended with his whole face. "Yeah," he said. "Yeah, that's okay with me." Mia grabbed Ariana's hand without hesitation, already chattering about unicorns and secret gardens and whether the restaurant had chocolate cake. And Ariana let herself be led, her fingers intertwined with a child's, her heart cracked open in ways she hadn't known were possible. Liam walked beside them, close enough that his shoulder brushed hers. "This is where it started," he said quietly, glancing back at the door they had left behind. "That room. That mistake." "It wasn't a mistake," Ariana replied. "It was a door opening. I just didn't know it yet." They walked toward the elevator together, a single father who fixed broken things, a billionaire who was learning to be fixed, and a little girl who saw the good in everyone. Behind them, the door to room 51A remained closed. But somewhere in the building, a chapter was ending and another was beginning. And for the first time in 3 years, Ariana Sterling wasn't afraid of what came next.